At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for another comic book review. I've been waiting on this one a long time. It's finally Children of the Atom from Vita Ayala and Bernard Chang is here. The much delayed comic book that apparently had plenty of pages actually had to be redrawn. I guess there were some issues, and then it got so delayed that the continuity within Jonathan Hickman's Dawn of X, Reign of X kind of changed, and I guess they had to change some of the story just to make it fit. But it's here now, and is this the worst comic I've ever read? Absolutely not. This isn't even the worst X-Men comic I've read lately. There was plenty worse stuff in Ten of Swords. Does this series have problems? I guess, if you're just looking at what the premise I thought should probably be, there's plenty of stuff to work here. There's something that Vita Ayala and the team over in the X-Men office could probably do with this. But I think they missed the boat big time, and you can definitely tell there's some changes along the way. There's some parts of this comic that just don't fit right. It's just almost incomprehensible, like what's going on. And really, the biggest issue with this is I think Vita Ayala, maybe they were so excited to finally get an X-Men series, they went a little bit too hard in the paint. They went too big, too fast, because I don't even know what this comic book is about. It could be eight or nine different things according to this one issue of what this story is. What's the fabric of Children of the Atom? Exactly the story that she's trying to tell within this X-Men Krakoan Nation universe that we're all reading through within the Marvel's X-Men line right now. If you guys can figure out, or you can tell me the one or two things that this comic book is actually trying to achieve, and explain how these other things aren't getting in the way, I would really appreciate it, because I can't figure it out. But now it's time let's just get into the details and the issues with this, and why I will explain why this is a very hard comic book to review. I am giving it 2-star. I do not recommend this comic book. And I don't have much faith in the series moving forward just by what I've seen out of this. But maybe you disagree, and let's get into the details. Before I do that, I do want to say, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this, thumbs down if you don't. Either way, I want to hear from you guys. What did you think of Children of the Atom #1? Did it hit you in the sweet spot? Did you have some feels for this comic? Or were you disappointed with just like me? Let's get into it. First up, we'll talk about the art from Bernard Chang, definitely the most high-profile creator on here. Bernard Chang's been a wonderful artist in comic books for a very long time. It looks pretty okay. There's some parts of it that don't really work. I'm going to get into that specifically here in a second. But, the character designs, yes, you can pretty much tell by looking at the characters which one's supposed to be Cyclops, which one's supposed to be Gambit, which one's supposed to be Marvel Girl, and which one's supposed to be Archangel and Nightcrawler. And the names are kind of all kind of on the nose. Although Cyclops last, if you say it kind of fast, is like Cyclopsless. Not a very good name. Marvel Girl becoming Marvel Boy, pretty silly. We've seen that joke before. I think Gambit is it Gimmick? I believe so. Nightcrawler is now Daycrawler, and Archangel is now Cherub. And that's the team that we're introduced to. There's a distinct difference, at least that I noticed, between like the first 12 pages of this comic, just as far as the look and the coloring, and the final, 28 pages? I think this is a 40-page comic. Like it looks different. Like not like completely jarring, like it's a different artist, but it's definitely not consistent really as far as like the color palette and stuff all the way through. Now let's get to the big problem with the art in this, and it's the opening action scene, which is like 12 pages, which is establishing this team of young new X-Men wannabe characters, the Children of the Atom. They're fighting a team of depowered mutants. They're called Hell's Bells. There's only one of them that's still been powered up after M-Day. I guess the rest of them have not been resurrected. They haven't been welcomed into the society. So they have a little battle out on the streets. It's not the biggest battle of all times. I've seen much bigger superhero battles, but I don't know. Bernard Chang just, it was hard for me to follow it. It was not easy to just follow the action and know what was happening all the time. I did not enjoy that. It felt like it was, I don't know. It's like, who's that? Paul Greengrass. Whenever you watch one of his Bourne Identity films and it's like the shaky cam, like I wish you'd stop. Just show me, a more clear focus and vision on the action so I can actually see what's going on. It doesn't need to feel hectic all the time. And this opening action scene absolutely felt hectic. Now, getting into the real crux in the issue with this comic book, and it is the writing, shockingly, right? What is this comic book supposed to be? So when it opens up, it feels like these are young superhero mutants defying government mandates that have outlawed teenage superheroes in the Outlaw series, right? Okay, well, that's a place to start with. That's certainly something that's going on. We've seen it going through some other stories. Don't know that it needs to be told here, but that's certainly something that this could be the foundational force or the driving force of this first issue and this team of new superheroes. But there could also be a mystery comic about these young mutants. Are they even mutants? It's certainly hinted at that they cannot be seen by Cerebro. So that's an indication that they might not be mutants. And then there is a final scene that I'll talk about at the end. So that could be it. It could be a mystery. What are these kids? Are they mutants? Are they chimera? Are these, part of Mr. Sinister's experiments gone wrong, or that escaped? He thought maybe he destroyed them, but he didn't. And they're out there. Maybe that's what they are. Is this a comic about a group of misfits that have been brought together through circumstance? Kind of feels like that. Maybe are they outcasts? At one point, the Marvel Boy character, who I believe is white, refers to the Daycrawler character, who appears to be Asian, as his brother. Does that mean, are they like in a foster family? Is that why they're friends? I have no idea why they're friends. It's never explained. They're just friends. But what's brought them together? What made them feel like they could come out and talk to each other about their powers and their desires to go out there and save people? Not really explored very heavily, but it's certainly hinted at, which is what this comic does a lot. It just hints at things, but it never lays a foundation of what this story is supposed to be. Is this story supposed to be about the heroes on Krakoa trying to bring their lost children back home? It's certainly talked about far too much. For like 6 pages, you get Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm and Nightcrawler and Jean Grey playing pool together, talking about we need to bring him home. And I've never seen dialogue so out of character for Wolverine. This is the most Dadverine Wolverine I've ever read. There's 5 of these kids. They're out there kicking butt and taking names. They just, they defeated a team that was led by a powered mutant that hadn't lost their powers. Jean Grey's like, well, maybe they just want to be left alone, and that's why they don't want to come back to Krakoa. Because it's never explained why they don't want to come to Krakoa. They're talking about it. And Wolverine's like, well, what if they get hurt? We can't just leave them out there. We can't leave people that want to be left alone. I can't imagine anything more out of character for Wolverine, the character that would always like to be left alone. In fact, we've seen it in his current Wolverine series. He takes a gate to Alaska just to get away from these bozos. Dadverine is the worst Wolverine. And this might be the worst Dadverine, even though it's only like 5 or 6 pages. Is this a story about anti-mutant sentiments growing amongst the people against Krakoa as their power is fortified through these mutant medicines and using financial means to wield power in the world? That could be what this story is about. That's certainly part of it, but it's not a big part of it. It's just a little part of it, because Vita Ayala does not know what this story is supposed to be about. Is this story about why these kids are apprehensive about going to Krakoa? Is it because, like, maybe most of them want to go to Krakoa because they feel like they're mutants, but one of them really, he doesn't want to go? Or maybe he's got a family situation where his dad, like, he thinks his dad will hunt him down and beat him, and they can't leave him behind. Like, somebody needs to come in and intervene and save him. That might be part of what the story is. Never explained why they wouldn't want to go to Krakoa if they're all mutants and they have powers. never even touched on in this story? Is this a story about teen superheroes balancing their puberty as they're growing into adolescence with their new abilities, a la Spider-Man? Kind of. It's certainly part of what she's trying to do here. It's part of what the story is. There's 40 pages here. There's not one single character that is even borderline fleshed out in this. Not one character's motivation spelled out. Not one character's background or origin even hinted at. 40 pages to establish one of 5 characters. Or maybe hint at establishing one of them. No, it's just these characters in different scenes, establishing nothing about what's going on. Is this story a teen romance love triangle? Kind of hinted at. I'm not sure. Because the gimmick character seems to have a special bond with Cherub. Is that her brother? Or is that her boyfriend? Never fully explained. But we do know that Gimmick's best friend, Cyclopsless, is in love with Cherub as well. Why can't she go after him and pursue that interest that she has? Is it because her best friend is dating him? Or is it because that's her best friend's brother and that would bother her? Don't know, but it's certainly the foundations. The seed is planted here. It's not watered any. There's nothing to grow out of it because it's just brushed over as soon as that happens. Finally, this could be a call to action quest story where these 5 characters finally see that they have something bigger in the world that they need to go out and explore and go and find together and grow and become greater people than they are today. Hinted at that might happen. So this story could be all of that. But because it's so many things, it really ends up being nothing. Vita Ayala forgot the core principle of the story. Who are these characters? Why are they here? Why are they friends? Why should we care about them? Cyclopsless is the leader. She talks the most. And I'll tell you this, you can probably see that. There's a lot of dialogue in this comic book. Tons of dialogue. Who's Gimmick? Gimmick is Cyclopsless' best friend. That's all I know about her. Who's Cherub? Cherub is good at basketball. He can dunk. Otherwise, I don't know much about him. Apparently, he's a jock. Who's Marvel Boy? He's on the same basketball team as Cyclopsless, or not Cyclopsless, as Cherub. Other than that, I don't know much. And who is Daycrawler? He's the one with the most bad jokes. Is he supposed to be like a Beast Boy type character where he says corny stuff that is eventually endearing and you're rooting for him because he's the underdog? Perhaps. They forgot to establish that you're supposed to like the character and root for him first. He just comes off as exceptionally annoying. And that is what the crux of what is wrong with this comic book. 40 pages to establish something about these characters. 40 pages to get a reader to invest in a character. None of it accomplished. What is this comic book about? I have no idea. It's about everything. This comic is essentially about everything that Vita Ayala ever wanted to write about an X-Men story. All combined into one 40-page comic. Baffling that this kind of stuff gets through. It's frustrating because if you take maybe 2 or 3 of the things that are sort of established in this and expand upon them, you have the bedrock, the foundation for probably a pretty good team, a pretty good story. And maybe you can have some time to establish these characters and the reader can get to know them and maybe like them, maybe root for them and want to come back and see what they do next time and see if they're going to, if it's going to turn out in their favor. What's bad's going to, I don't care what happens to any of these characters. I don't know any of them. Nothing was established other than that they have powers and they would like to be superheroes. There you go. The other thing about this comic book is the dialogue. And there's a lot of it, but it is really, really bad. Here's a couple of the doozies before we get to this page here. There's a line that goes, "Bamf," goes Nighty Nightcrawler. Well, isn't that a great line? Doesn't that make you want to go for Daycrawler? There's another part where I believe it's Gimmick says, "Back off, stranger danger." How 80s of you, or is that 90s? It ain't now, I'll tell you that. There's another line, and I believe this is also Daycrawler. How are you so bad at villainy? How are you so bad at writing, Vita Ayala? How are you so bad at writing characters with any type of voice or personality other than lame? You were scarier when you had powers, just FYI. People do not speak in text. It's so annoying. There's another one. Don't talk to my brother that way, old head. And there are so many old jokes in the first 12 pages as they're fighting. They're just calling the other team old. The other team appears to be like 20. You could at least throw some gray on them, make them look older. I can imagine teen superheroes calling like maybe a team of 30-year-olds old, but they look like they're 20. They're in the same peer group, as far as you can tell from the art. So the jokes come off like why do you keep calling these people old? Because they're not old. They look like they're the same age as you. Whatever. So there's a lot of bad dialogue, and you knew this was coming. Vita Ayala on an X-Men comic, there's got to be some virtue signaling. And so we've got Gimmick and Cyclopsless talking about going to the Dazzler concert. And Gimmick's going to get her some backstage passes or something. And you've got some people behind him. Maybe you should actually pay attention to things happening in the world. Yeah, Dazzler's a mutant. Mutants are building an army to come and invade us. As far as we know, that could be true. That certainly hasn't been disputed, or that I would think Sue Storm might agree with that one. They did try to kidnap her children. Actually, I think they might have succeeded on that one. They're flooding the world with medicine, quote unquote medicine, that's really killing us. Their companies are forcing human companies to collapse, and you're funding their agenda. How does moving to a place where mutants aren't persecuted equal mutants raising an army? And in what universe is sharing resources and helping people in need poisoning people? That's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. What? Are you a mutant lover or something? You drink the Kool-Aid. Buddy, what? I'm not a... What I am is not a small-minded bigot. You got served, pal. She could have used these pages to establish who these characters are, besides annoying and not speaking like other people. There you go. Your virtue signaling that you knew was going to happen in a Vita Ayala X-Men story. So at the end, we do get this big reveal, I guess. And it's pretty confusing in the digital copy I got. Because I've seen this last page on the right. I've seen it in multiple versions of this. And in this one, it looks like these characters who have decided to leave their families, who we don't know. We don't know why they wanted to stay. They did just decide to leave for no reason. They tried to go through the portal. And it appears because on the backside, you can see the dock at Coney Island, like behind them, as if they've gone through the portal and now they are in a jungle-like climate. It looks like they're in the jungle, like they're in Krakoa. But there's other versions, and I've seen the original version of this last page, and it's clear that they didn't go through. And the character, I believe it's Cyclopsless, says, "We're on our own," saying they're not going to accept us there. And then she says, "That's okay, next time. Let's head up before anyone catches us." As in, we need to go back home. But in here, it looks like they went through the portal. It looks like the dock is clearly behind them, and they are on Krakoa. But in the other pages that I've seen, it looks clear as day they didn't make it through. So this was confusing. So these might not even be mutants, because they can't be seen by Cerebro. And I think this is supposed to say that they didn't make it through the portal. It was clear in the other image, which I'll try and put up here, but not so clear here. So it did leave a little bit of confusion here on the end. That is my review of Children of the Atom, the spoiler review, 2-star comic. Should I bring it down to a 1.5? I'm going to leave it at a 2-star. The art in places was good. The foundation, this could have been a decent comic book. Now it's a 1.5-star comic. You don't want to read this. It's all over the place. You have 40 pages to establish an identity for this team, an identity for this comic book, to establish why I should come back and why I should care about these characters. Not one character was established. Not one foundational piece of this comic book was solidified as the driving force of Children of the Atom. It's just a bunch of random ideas. Well, not random. There's certainly been throughout the history of X-Men thrown into one comic book. Terrible execution. Did I expect more? Not really, if I'm being honest. I didn't expect much. But my expectations were confirmed. This is not a very good comic book, not very well executed. Will the Shield media fawn over this? Absolutely. They fawn over everything. But they shouldn't be, because this is a bad comic book. If you have a disagreement, if you think this was great, let me know in the comment section. I would love to know, what's the foundation of this team? What was Vita Ayala establishing in this comic book, rather than everything? Because I don't think they were very successful.